Diddy used his business, turned it to a criminal enterprise for coercion to be able to conceal and hide illegal activity. Over the past 2 weeks, we have heard several witnesses that have had explosive and explicit testimony in regards to Diddy's lifestyle. Don Hughes is the expert witness that the government has called in their case in chief in this trial. Don Hughes is a psychologist as well as a domestic violence expert who has testified in many cases pertaining to domestic violence as well as sex trafficking. You may also know her name from whenever she testified against R. Kelly. The reason for why the government has called Dr. Hughes to the stand is to be able to explain Cassie's testimony in regards to the abuse that she suffered, and also to answer for the jurors, why would Cassie stay in a relationship this long with a person that has had such a troubled past and such an explosive temper toward her. The reason for why these witnesses are called is because they have a better insight to be able to explain to people why a victim would suffer the hands of abuse from a person that they probably do love, but at the same time have a very complicated relationships. This is not an uncommon practice for the prosecution because we actually do it in state court as well. What they provide is an expert experience in regards to their counseling services as well as their studies to be able to explain to people what is going on with the power dynamics in these relationships, and also to explain about why age differences matter within relationships, as well as the power dynamic when someone is your boss or may have some sort of undue influence over a woman, to explain why she would stay. I believe that this was a very important factor in this particular case because, as you have heard, Cassie and Diddy's relationship is very unique. The reason for why it is unique is because Cassie did testify that she actually did really love Diddy at different points in their relationships, and their relationship did not have a clean breakup. In fact, she did testify that on multiple times that she has left Diddy, but she went back on her own accord, which may seem strange to a jury of her peers. It is also not uncommon for the government to call in another expert in regards to sex trafficking. The reason for why these witnesses are important is because sex trafficking does not look the way that it is portrayed often in movies. We all have seen the movie Taken, and in those situations, it is typically a young girl that is innocent, that is naive, and doesn't understand why a man is talking to her or advancing her, and as a result of that, she typically is kidnapped in a movie and forced to do things that she does not want to do. That is the movies, but very rare in real life. Typically, trafficking victims are people that usually are willing participants at a certain point until that point goes too far whenever there is violence involved or drugs become involved into the situation. Here, Cassie does have a unique relationship with Diddy because they really were in a relationship in her point of view. And because we have a relationship of being a boss with an employee, a girlfriend and her boyfriend, and as well as just being a public figure overall, this has become a very messy piece of testimony on Cassie's behalf. And because of that, I do believe that it is important that the government takes out time to educate 12 people in the community about how these things happen, even though they personally may not participate in these acts themselves or know a person personally who would ever be involved in a domestic violence relationship or become involved in a sex trafficking incident. After Cassie's testimony, we have heard the government put on several witnesses that have been employees of Diddy as well as some of his other victims. The reason for why they have done this is because we are now finally moving along to the racketeering portion of this trial. This is important because many people in the community have felt that up to this point, we have only heard about domestic violence. And even though domestic violence is serious and it is a very explosive trial, and these things are not common for what most people would want to see in any type of relationship, those are misdemeanor charges. And so people want to know, how have we gotten from state court to federal court on racketeering? Here we have now heard witnesses that are Diddy's personal assistants. They have been his recording artists. They have also been bodyguards. They have been a numerous amount of people now that actually have worked for him, and the government has called them to be able to support their theory that Diddy used his business, turned it to a criminal enterprise for coercion to be able to conceal and hide illegal activity. The main illegal activity they have been discussing has been the domestic violence against Cassie. We have heard witnesses testify how they have taken her places or having large sums of cash in bags as well as drugs that they have transported for Diddy on his particular behalf. All of these things are little steps that the government is using to be able to prove racketeering. A surprise witness this week was the recording artist and actor Kid Cudi. Kid Cudi came to court in New York City to discuss what has been long rumored as a situation in which Diddy blew up his car because he was jealous and really upset about the relationship that he began to have with Cassie. This very detailed and very thorough testimony was used to be able to show that once again, there has been a criminal act, which here will be arson for blowing up Kid Cudi's car, to be able to show that Diddy has in fact used his influence and used his actual business to be able to hide his criminal acts, therefore creating this criminal enterprise. Trial is scheduled to begin on Tuesday, May 27th, and what I anticipate that we will hear are more witnesses from the government and in law enforcement. I anticipate that everyone will hear is more so about the investigation that has led to these serious offenses. As we've been able to see thus far, we have heard, and it is well known, that there is definitely a domestic violence component to this particular case, as well as a massive amount of drug use that is illegal that's associated with this case. What I anticipate will be more people from law enforcement to be able to link together how the drugs became part of Diddy's lifestyle, where they were located in his home, were these things being shipped across the country, and also the people that were employed by Diddy who were facilitating this amount of drug use. Also, when the drug use has been discussed at length, but it is very important, the reason for why the drug use has been discussed, because that too also lends to the criminal enterprise that the government is alleging that Diddy was running. For instance, when Cassie was testifying about the aliases that were used at the different hotels that her and Diddy would stay at, there is actually a picture of a prescription drug bottle that had his alias written on there. That particular bottle comes from a private facility in Los Angeles, California, that is supplying him these type of pills. The main issue here is that it is illegal for you to have a prescription drug in someone else's name or an alias. You must in fact have those particular pills in your name. All of these little bitty steps are going to be able to put the big picture together and place the pieces of the puzzle to be able to show that Diddy's business was in fact a criminal enterprise, and that this is not just an incident of a man that is abusive, a man that is abusive because he is a drug addict or because he has alternative lifestyle. What I also anticipate that we will see is more from the defense team of once again showing that but for Cassie's having a lawsuit, but for Cassie trying to sue Diddy, but for Cassie allegedly writing a tell-all book about what Diddy did to her, that these things never would have occurred. Explicit videos are allowed to be shown in court, and typically they actually would be published in front of the jury. However, the prosecution does have discretion in how they present their evidence. The defense team does as well, because they too will be able to have their opportunity to present evidence on their own in front of the jury. Here, instead of having the explicit videos of the entire freak-offs being shown and published in an open courtroom, the prosecution has erred on the side of caution and has shown still shots of some of the disturbing behavior that you would see inside of the explicit videos. As they always say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And because these videos are so explicit and shock the conscious in a way that could distract from so many other elements of the trial, the prosecution has decided to just give a baseline image that will be stuck with the jury about what this room was like and the activity that was inside of the room. It also has been noted that whenever the jury did see the 4 still shots that were depicted of the freak-offs, there was an audible gasp inside of the courtroom. The jury did seem very shocked and almost offended by what they saw. And because of that, there really is no need to show the entire video at this juncture of the trial. Throughout the next upcoming weeks, I suspect even more shocking testimony, as well as surprises from both the government and the defense in this case. If you would like to continue to follow this case, please leave your question and comments below and stay tuned for more updates.